an idea of what your campaign is about, what folks need to know.
Yeah. So I'm running for governor for a very specific reason, and that is that it is time for the people of South Carolina to return the power to its rightful owner, which is we the people. You know, the truth of the matter is these for-profits have greased both sides of the political track for as long as I've been alive. I believe the people of South Carolina deserve a governor that belongs to them and nobody else. A man or woman who cannot be bought, who is unafraid to speak the truths that have remained unspoken in the state for a long time. And it's time. You know, if you think about it, what's not fascinating, it's kind of scary that this thing known as artificial intelligence is going to cause all of us in South Carolina an economic death sentence within the next 3 years. Right now they're trying to build data centers, which is the infrastructure for the AI, which is going to destroy rural South Carolina, our precious way of life. If we the people don't come together and hold the line against these for-profits, they're going to take us off the cliff. And I think it's time that the people of South Carolina take the power back and draw a line and say, look, we understand you want to make money, but you're not going to destroy our way of life. You're not going to force us to give up our dominion and control over this thing called our time on this side of the soil. It's really crazy that, I mean, Bill Gates says that all the jobs, all of them, will be gone in 10 years. Sam Altman says that, you know, the CEO of OpenAI, he says that AI will most likely be the end of humanity. But the good news is that there'll be a lot of good corporations that will be built in the meantime. Now think about that. And in South Carolina, our corrupt political establishment is not sounding the alarm. They are not protecting our way of life. They aren't protecting our jobs from these for-profits. Instead, they've fed us to the for-profit wolves. Well, the people's governor, Mullins McLeod, is not going to feed the people to the wolves. I'm going to protect the people of South Carolina, their precious way of life, and their jobs.
Let me just make sure. You said you have a video on X where you say you're the only candidate to call for a living wage here in the state. What do you mean by that? What is that wage? And if you were governor, how would you reach that financial goal?
Right. So to my knowledge, well, first off, South Carolina's wage laws are the same today as they were in the 1800s. I am the first person to my knowledge to run for governor in our state who has said out loud that if you get up every day and go to work, the employers are required to pay their employees a livable wage. Now what I've said on Instagram is $18 an hour, okay? I would love to tell people that that living wage should be higher than that, but I don't want to sell them on something I don't think I can deliver. I think if we can get our legislature to agree to enact a state minimum wage at $18 an hour, that will be a first step towards doing something that has not been done in our state since the 1800s, and that is show the people get up every day and go to work the respect they've long deserved. You know, it's not a coincidence that I'm the first person in our state's history to advocate for all of our people to get up and go every day and go to work to be paid a livable wage, because these for-profits agrees both sides of the track forever. See, the for-profits don't want people to go to work every day to be paid a livable wage. They want wages to be as low as possible because that's how they increase their profits. Well, the truth is that, you know, I'm a small business owner, okay? When I tell business owners, I said, look, let me give you a little advice. If you invest in your people, guess what? They show up. They perform. You don't have turnover and attrition. You don't have to retrain. You know, synergy is the magic in business, because synergy is when the sum is larger than the parts. And you don't get synergy in the business world by breaking it off in the back of the people that come to work every day and make your business possible. So just invest in your people, show them respect they've long deserved, and I promise you what's good for people is good for business. The problem in this state is that what's good for profits is not always good for people. And instead of the people's interest having been served, the will of people doesn't get served in South Carolina. The financial desires of the for-profits is what has been served the last 50 years, and it's got to stop.
Understood. Okay, you're running against a lot of big names when it comes to South Carolina lawmakers. Alan Wilson, Nancy Mace, even on the Democratic side, Jermaine Johnson. Why did you decide to enter the race? Why this year in particular? I understand that you did also make a bid back in 2010 but why now, especially with all these heavy hitters in the state?
So I don't really worry about who else is running. I'm going to run my race. I'm largely, to a certain extent, self-funding. I belong to the people of South Carolina, nobody else. And I'm going to speak truths that I believe have needed to be spoken for an awful long time. And so I don't really care what other people do. Everybody else in this race is a politician. And with all due respect, I believe they're politically corrupt. And I can walk you through their record and demonstrate how they're politically corrupt. And maybe there'll be a time down the road when I do that. But for now, I'm just staying very centered and very focused on running my race. For me, when you ask why now, the truth of the matter is this spring, I had no desire to run for governor. Okay, I have been very blessed in the private sector. My law career in the last 25 years have allowed me to make money, quite frankly, I never dreamed I would make. I live on the Battery. You could never told me in a million years, a million dreams I'd live on the Battery, okay? I got very comfortable. But somebody came to me and said, Mullins, we really want you to run. And when they did, I said, I had no desire to run. But I said, you know, I'm gonna look at this thing, the state of the state, where we are, our wages, the cost of health insurance, access to quality health care, our public education, our roads, you name it, the whole thing. And I started researching at my computer. I spent about 4 months. See, I do my own work. Because politicians don't do their own work. They just get handed stuff by the for-profits, and they're like jukeboxes. Then they then say what the for-profits want them to say. I don't do that. I do my own work. And I did research, and I got so pissed off. I mean, excuse my French. When I learned that, you know, our state pension is underfunded by $26 billion. It's underfunded by $26 billion because of political corruption. When I saw the DOT study that showed that our infrastructure is 25 years behind schedule, it really upset me because, you know, we get our pockets picked at the gas pump every time we go buy gas. They have increased our gas tax for the last 6 years, I believe, 2 cents a gallon each year for a total of 12 cents, promising us better roads, yet the studies I see show that we have the worst, most dangerous roads in the nation. You know what really also bothered me is this idea that this corrupt political establishment takes public money and gives it to their for-profit friends for their for-profits' financial desires. That is so corrupt and it is so wrong. Like, for example, we pay for better roads, but yet we don't get them. But yet right now, the people of South Carolina are paying for Volvo, a Chinese-owned for-profit car manufacturer, to have its own dedicated rail line from its plant, where it doesn't pay any property taxes, to CSX's main line, which then goes straight to the port. It's just so corrupt. You see, these politicians have been doing the for-profits bidding, and when they do it, it causes direct economic harm to us. You know, I look back at last legislative session when I was doing my research, decided whether or not this is something I was going to do, and I could not believe that this failed, broken, and corrupt political establishment literally gave the for-profit power companies the right, the legal right, to jack up your power bill, my power bill, and everybody else's power bill in this state to ensure the power company's profitability. And think how corrupt that is. I mean, the only personal guarantee I know of is when we go to the bank and we borrow money, we have to sign a personal guarantee, and God forbid if we don't make the payments, they come take all our stuff. Think about that. Not only have they given the power companies, in essence, a monopoly, but they've given them the green light to jack up our rates. That is absolutely corrupt. So people all over South Carolina are paying significantly more for power than they otherwise should be. Santee Cooper. Santee Cooper, there's a truth that needs to be spoken about Santee Cooper. They have 2 million innocent ratepayers in South Carolina in handcuffs, where Santee Cooper requires 2 million innocent people to purchase their power from guess who? The failed, broken, and corrupt establishment. If Santee Cooper would take those handcuffs off, 2 million innocent ratepayers would have more money in their pocket every month because they can purchase more reliable power at a cheaper price from people other than Santee Cooper.
And I want to jump back to something you said earlier.
Yes, sir.
You said that you're not taking donations or you're not sponsored. And I read online.
No, I'm accepting donations.
You're accepting donations.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Let me say that correctly. I have it written down on your website. It says that you raised $1.4 million for your campaign, most of it out of your own pocket.
Yes, sir.
And I was curious, Why is that the case? And then also, how far are you willing to invest into your own campaign?
Right. So one thing that has been unspoken in this state for a long time is South Carolina does have a class system, right? You have the political class, then you have the donor class, which is primarily the for-profits and wealthy individuals, and then you have we the people, okay? I have shown the donor class and the for-profits something they have never seen in South Carolina political history. I've shown them a closed fist instead of an open hand. You follow me? So my campaign is only going to be funded by we the people and W. Mullins McLeod Jr. because I believe that the people of South Carolina deserve a government that belongs to them and nobody else. You know, it sounds harsh, okay, but politicians have one thing in common with dogs. They don't bite the hand that feeds them, okay? So if you rely on the for-profits and the donors class to get you elected, it's human nature that you don't bite the hand that fed you, that got you there. I would rather not become our state's next governor than to take the for-profits money to get me there. Because at the end of the day, the job that needs to be done is to get all of us in South Carolina to understand that we the people are all in this together, we all want the same things, and we've got to hold the line against these for-profits. I believe that I'll be our state's next governor. I believe that the people of South Carolina, once they hear my voice, South Carolina will find her voice again. This cancer of corruption must be cured, and it can be cured by the people of South Carolina, and I think that's what's going to happen this election cycle. You know, it's fascinating as we go across the state. These politicians and these for-profits would have us believe that there are all these different groups. There's black, there's white, there's brown, there's men, there's women, there's rich, there's poor, working, all these names. It's baloney. There's only one label that matters, and that's human being. We are all God's children. We are all in this together. The enemy is not white, black, rich, poor. The enemy is these for-profits who have rigged the deal to satisfy their own financial desires while at the same time cause us direct economic harm. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, it's just, and I've had enough of it. You know, here's the truth. I am the most uniquely qualified, competent, and specially trained person to be our state's next governor than anybody who's ever run for governor in our state's history. I have a 25-year track record in courtrooms all over this state representing people against, guess who? For-profits who cause harm to innocent people. So really, me running for governor is a complete and natural extension of everything I've done my entire adult life. I've trained my entire adult life to represent the people of South Carolina in this conflict with the for-profits that I believe will not only determine our present, but our future.
You've been outspoken about the data centers. You brought it up earlier as well. Google now has their own data centers here up in Dorchester.
I call it the Death Star.
Death Star is what you named them. And over in Carleton County, it looks like there was a proposal for them to be built, and you were actually at those meetings.
Right.
Why are you so outspoken about this topic in particular, especially right now when our own governor seems to be okay backing these and increasing them with the promise that they will be bringing jobs to the area? So if you were elected governor, what would you do differently about that? And how would you say no to Google saying we're going to invest $3 billion into the economy?
So here's the truth. Data centers do not create jobs. That is the snake oil that this corrupt political establishment is trying to sell the people of South Carolina so they will okay these data centers. It's snake oil, that's all it is. Here's the truth. Data centers need a security guard, somebody to plug the computer in, and somebody to keep the dust off the computers. They do not create jobs. This is what they do. They suck up all the water, the aquifer underneath it. The reason why they're going to rural South Carolina is because that's where the water is. That's where we've been growing our food for as long as we've been on this side of the soil. That's why they want to go there. The other thing these data centers do is they use tremendous amounts of electricity. And what happens is, as their demand for electricity goes, the power companies have to build new capacity, and then we, the people, pay for the cost. So it's going to drive up our power. It's going to rob literally from underneath our feet God's gift to us, which is our water. It's not going to create jobs. It's all going to be for their for-profit desires. And what people are going to learn throughout this campaign is we got to hold the line on the data centers because that's the infrastructure they're going to use to take all of our jobs into population centers. You see, once the data centers are in place, then AI, this artificial intelligence, can replace human intelligence. And that's why people all over South Carolina will have an economic death sentence in the next 3 years if we don't hold the line. So what I will do as governor, I will defend our state's border unlike it has ever been defended before. And I will tell the for-profits, you ain't coming in here, Jack. It ain't happening. See, the shame of what's happened in Columbia is the establishment has turned the other cheek. Instead of protecting us and our precious way of life in rural South Carolina and prohibiting these data centers from being built, they have turned the other cheek. They've taken the data centers' money and they've left it to people at the local level to fend for themselves. So like I was in Colleton County, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, okay? So the beauty of this thing called democracy, the power in this country and in this state does not belong to the political class. It doesn't belong to the for-profits. It belongs to the people. So what you saw in Walterboro was people organically organized to protect themselves. See, the politicians think, look, we'll turn the other cheek. On the local level, they're too stupid to figure it out. You'll get the permit, you'll be able to build the data center. But what they're going to learn is, no. People are not stupid. See, I don't care whether you have a PhD or your last year of education was the 6th grade. Every single person in this state, not the for-profits, has this thing called human intuition that God gave all of us, and it's far more advanced than any supercomputer ever built. See, people know the truth when they hear it and when they see it, and that's what they're seeing in our campaign. So I just read in the paper before you got here that the head of the zoning board in Colleton County was against the data centers after he heard the public uproar over it. And guess what they just did? They replaced him. Now, I don't know the full story, but I'm going to find out the whole story. You see, these for-profits have been running this scam for as long as I've been alive. They use their money. I mean, big tech is the deepest pocket in American political history. Okay? But here's a fascinating thing about big tech. So when we had the gold rush, right, you had companies that wanted to mine this mineral out of the earth. Now, that mineral was not going to kill anybody. It was not going to be an economic death sentence for anybody, but it posed an opportunity for private companies. And what happened in the gold rush is these companies invested their own money to extract this mineral out of the earth to then try to make money for it. There's nothing wrong with that. What I have a problem with is greed. Greed is a sin and it is a bottomless pit. So do you know what big tech is doing right now? They're not investing their own money in these data centers. This is one thing we're going to talk about in the campaign. What they're doing is they are having land speculators, just like the guy who came to Walterboro the other night. And what the land speculators do is they try to get the property under contract, they try to get it permitted. And then once they get it permitted, right, and built, tech puts the lease on the data center. Then they're selling off the lease, that piece of commercial paper, to pension funds to offset the risk. So at the end of the day, what big tech wants in these data centers is all the juice and none of the squeeze. Do you know why they're doing that? So they're financing these data centers on the dark side of the moon. Not through the regulatory banking system where we can all see how they're borrowing the money. They're not doing that. They're doing it on the dark side of the moon. And do you know why they're doing it? Because they know that no matter how much money they have, all the world's gold combined does not have enough power, spending power, to stop the people of South Carolina. So what big tech is worried about, now they're not going to tell you this. It's not in the snake oil pitch, but trust me when I tell you, my friend, they know that there is a risk that people hear my truth and respond and we shut them down. And because of that risk, they don't want to have any skin in the game. If they thought there was no risk of getting shut down, well, they would just invest their money and they would build the data centers themselves. I mean, I own a small business. I don't try to finance my growth on the dark side of the moon. I mean, I put my own money on the table and I try to grow and have a successful small business. I mean, for example, I bought a building in Columbia, I guess 3 years ago for McLeod Law Group's Columbia office. I pay $13,000 a year property taxes. Okay, it's on Richmond Street. Well, the people of Richland County spent over $14 million for 1,600 acres in Lower Richland County, but there's not a single person in Richland County who is allowed by law to step foot on that 1,600 acres. You know why? Because a for-profit, a foreign for-profit known as Scout Motors, has complete dominion and control over that 1,600 acres. That's where they house their robots for their own for-profit desires. And guess what? They don't pay $1 in property taxes. I mean, these for-profits have led this legislature around by their noses. And I'm going to put a stop to it. Well, let me back up. The people of South Carolina are going to put a stop to it. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind.
Understood. Now let's address something that is kind of important here. You made national headlines earlier this year after a video of you in the back of a
Sure. Yeah, ask me anything you want to.
Great. Shouting profanities from the back of a police car was released. What happened that night, in your opinion? I want to give you the space to.
Sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate the question. So there are things that I can't talk about right now. Okay. And what I've said from the beginning is that my obligation is to the people of South Carolina, and my obligation is to make sure that they make an informed decision at the ballot box. And I've told the voters that long before they go to the polls, they will have my full side of the story. There are things that I can't disclose now that have my hands tied to a certain extent with regard to telling the full story, okay? But I'll share with you this. One, on the law enforcement side of the arrest, I believe before this is over, I will prove that the City of Charleston police officers committed a felony act by taking my freedom in violation of my God-given constitutional rights to be in a public place for any reason or no reason at all. What I think will happen, and one thing that the City of Charleston Police Department will learn, is that when you dance with the truth, it's like dancing with a bear. You don't stop dancing until the bear stops. I begged the city, put the jury in the box, put me on trial, let's go. You arrested me, you locked me up for 38 hours on a misdemeanor charge that I do not believe I committed.
Right.
So come get me. Let the people decide whether I'm guilty or innocent. You follow me? And I believe the city's going to learn that when you dance with the truth, it's like dancing with the bear. Now, on my side of the rest, here's the truth. I learned an important lesson in that night. And that important lesson is that there are two ways to go through life. You can go through life relying on yourself for your strength. And if you do that, you're at risk of falling. You follow me? And you'll never reach your full potential. But if you rely on God for your strength, you're not going to fall. And if you rely on God for your strength, there is a better way. So, as uncomfortable as the video may be for some, all I can say is, put an R rating on it. It is what it is. And here's the truth from my standpoint. Was it fun, that video bouncing? I think it even went to Europe and stuff. It was no fun. It was brutal, okay? But here's the thing, man. It's part of my journey. That night is why I surrendered 70 days later. See, I learned such an amazing thing. And that is that there's a difference between believing in God and knowing God. And boy, that distinction makes all the difference. And so as uncomfortable as the video might be, I mean, I find beauty in it because it's just part of my journey. And it led me to surrender. And, and the truth of the matter is, I think that if I rely on God for my strength, the people of South Carolina can absolutely, through me in this campaign, bring this state's failed, broken, and corrupt political establishment to a bended knee and take all the power back for themselves and hold the line against these for-profits that have been causing direct economic harm for as long as I've been alive.
Understood. And after that video released, the South Carolina Democratic Party said that they asked you to drop out of the race and to focus on mental health and other matters as well. But you continued.
Sure.
Regardless. I'm curious as to why. Why keep going? What was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, so for me, the chairwoman calling for me to get out of the race is just noise. I mean, it's just something that happened. My plan, my path, and my purpose has never been clearer. and I'm not going to let any noise distract me from reaching my destination.
And you mentioned a little bit earlier as well about voters, and that video may be uncomfortable for some people to watch, and for some voters, put it rated R, what you need. But why should voters who have seen that video, why should they trust you? What's changed since then?
Oh, well, I think, look, so a politician would be trying to tell a voter what they should or shouldn't think about the video. A politician would be trying to tell a voter what they should or shouldn't feel about the video. I'm not a politician, I'm a servant leader. It's not my place to tell people what they should or should not think about anything. What I tell you is that was an event that happened. It is important in my journey on this side of the soil because that event is what led me to surrender. And make no mistake about it, my path, my purpose has never been clearer. And I'm going to run this race, and I'm going to give the people of South Carolina the opportunity to have a governor that belongs to them and nobody else. They have never had that opportunity in my lifetime. The truth of the matter is, everybody who's run for governor before me has been bought and paid for by the for-profits. And you know how I know that? Because I'm the first governor in our state, first candidate for governor in our state's history that has said out loud that people who go to work every day should be shown the respect they deserve, and they should be paid a livable wage. That's how I know that.
You mentioned a few other folks in the video as well, from Alan Wilson to Nikki Haley to Nancy Mace as well. Have you spoken to those people since? Has there been any communication on that end?
No, you know, I'm a servant leader. I do the work. I'm very focused on what I'm doing. And I said after the video, you know, kind of bounced all over, I said, look, I'm going to keep my head down and I'm going to hit my marks. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So it's exciting. Now, I knew, now remind me this though. So after I was arrested, okay, the city offered me a deal. They basically said, look, you can, we'll dismiss the charges, okay, and you can do this conditional discharge, and then you can move to have the charges expunged. It'll never be on your record. And I knew that that was door number one. That was an option, right? And I think probably a lot of people in my position would have said, you know, I think I'll stay in the private sector, this comfortable life, right, and make sure this video never surfaces. Be a logical thing for people to do. But see, my campaign is not about me. It's about us. My campaign is about something far more important than me. So what I did was I chose to fight the charges and to run for governor, knowing the video was going to come out, knowing that I would personally go through the equivalent of political hell on earth. And let me tell you why I was willing to personally go through political hell on earth. For you. Literally. You see, these politicians talk about freedom. They don't know the first thing about freedom. They've never been snatched off the street. You follow me? And I've told juries for years that the best way to stand up for your rights or to stand up for your neighbor's rights when they have been violated. So what I realized is the best way for me to stand up for this thing known as freedom is to stand up for my freedom when it was taken. And that's exactly what I'm doing, because my freedom is your freedom. Your freedom is my freedom. That's one of the ways how I know we, the people, are all in this together. We all want the same things, because these rights we all share together, this air we all breathe together, this soil that we walk on, we do it together. And if we hold hands, if we stop letting these for-profits and their bought and paid for politicians divide us, we will unleash a power the state has never seen before. And I believe it's going to happen.
You mentioned political hell. What did that look like? What has it been for you since then?
So, the first month was brutal. I mean, it's almost like I was sleepwalking. Okay? I mean, like, I've never been in a position where you wake up in the morning and you feel like the weight of the world is on your chest. I mean, you literally feel like, how can I get out of bed today? Okay? Because look, I've spent 25 years building an impeccable reputation, right? And all that was at risk like that. In an arrest, it should have never happened. See, the irony of it is that had these officers just followed the law, I believe I would have never been put in the back of that police car, and that video would have never existed. You follow me? And so, of course, that played in my head, this is so unfair, ... But then I got over that. And I kept my routine every day, and by the grace of God, and relying on Him for my strength, and me staying focused on the task. It's not about me. It's about what I can do for the people of South Carolina. And there is no doubt in my mind, I am the most uniquely qualified, specially trained, and competent person to be our state's next governor than anybody who's run for governor in our state's history. I've got a track record that is unblemished in the private sector in representing people against these for-profits who all they care about is money. And if they do direct harm to innocent people, they don't care. The role of government is to protect people from this direct economic harm these for-profits are causing us. But this failed, broken political establishment doesn't protect us. They feed us to the for-profit wolves.
What are next steps for you after this? I know you've been on the campaign trail, you've been busy, you've been talking to people, talking to folks. What happens now?
We just keep working. So here's some things about my campaign that is very different. I have not done a single poll about what to say. I'm not going to do a single poll about what to say. That's what politicians do. All I have to do is look around. You don't need a poll to know our public schools are failing. I was at a thing yesterday in the upstate, and a lady, a public school teacher, spoke and said, we don't have math teachers. It's not a question of our public schools have a teacher shortage. Some of our public schools do not have teachers. So how can the kids learn when they literally don't have a human being to teach them? Do you know why we don't have teachers in South Carolina? Political corruption. Because they refuse to pay the teachers. When I'm governor, public school teachers are going to make between $85,000 and $100,000 a year. That's what's going to happen. $45 billion comes in every single year. You know how much money we need to get our school teachers from what they're making now to $100,000 a year? Roughly $1.2 billion. Well, right now the state's sitting on $9 billion of your money and my money that they've taxed, they've taken from us, and they haven't spent it for our benefit. So I know where $9 billion is hiding right now. So that's a pretty good start on the 1.2 we need to increase teacher pay. And you watch. You invest in our teachers, all of a sudden, people who were thinking maybe they'd go into nursing, maybe they'd be a lawyer, whatever, they said, I think I'd like to be a teacher. And then guess what else happens? Teachers who are thinking about retiring, they're like, wait a minute now, I'm making a fair wage. I think I'll hang around. You follow? So the retention rate goes up. And it's just what these for-profits have done through these bought and paid for politicians is shameful. It's shameful. It really is.
Understood. If you could give one last message to voters, right? Let's try to summarize it in 20 seconds. You could say something to a voter directly. What would you tell them? To an undecided voter at the moment.
This is what I would say.
Oh,
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure I got you good on this.
That's fair.
I'm bouncing back and forth between cameras.
Yeah, you're a busy bee.
All right, go ahead.
So this is what I would say. Now, politicians do one thing. They try to manipulate voters into doing one thing, and that's vote for them. And they will say anything they think is necessary to achieve that goal of manipulating voters into doing one thing. So watch this. What I would say to voters is, ask questions, think, get on the internet, research all the candidates, figure out for yourselves, why are we in this situation? Look at the for-profits giving history to these politicians and look and see who's lining their campaign coffers. Is it we the people, or is it the for-profits? These political action committees, these LLCs, these Fortune 500 companies. You follow me? So I want people to think. I want people to consider. I want people to weigh their options and arrive at an informed decision. And I am confident that I'll be our state's next governor if people do that.
Understood. Heinz, anything that you want to ask?
If you're elected, South Carolina is a red state. What would you tell the voters how you would work across the aisle to Republicans, and will you try to, I don't know, like, you know how partisan politics
Sure,
has
yeah,
been
yeah,
working
no.
lately, and it's like, you guys are Democrats, you're bad, you're Republicans, you're bad. You know, what can you tell South Carolinians, like, hey, I want to tamper down that rhetoric,
Right.
and how would you work with Republicans?
Right. So politicians, what politicians do is the Republicans blame the Democrats blame the Republicans. Well, you know, when you point fingers at somebody, there are three fingers pointing back at you. You follow me? But that's all you hear is name calling and finger pointing. Well, when I'm our state's governor, what I'm going to do this very differently is I'm going to visit with the legislature. We've been told that the governor's office is weak. It doesn't have any power, that the laws are passed in the General Assembly, and so the governor is just weak. That's baloney. The governor is the only office that is constitutionally required to represent every single person in South Carolina. You see, what Democrats do when they get in office is they serve the interests of their for-profit donors and Democrats. When Republicans get in office, they serve their for-profit donors and the Republicans. I'm a servant leader. When I become our state's next governor, every single human being in this state is my responsibility. I don't care whether you voted for me or not. You're my responsibility. And I take that responsibility very seriously. So what I will do is I will work tirelessly on behalf of the people of South Carolina to make sure that every single member of the legislature, I don't care what party you're in, hears the people's voice. Hears from the people where they stand on issues. Like, for example, when the power company tries to rig the deal, I will go in every community in this state and I'll hold town halls. I'll say, folks, this is what's going on. They're trying to rig the deal. Here's your legislator's email, here's his or her cell phone number. Please contact them. Let them know how you feel about these for-profits trying to rig this deal and cause you direct economic harm. See, the people of South Carolina have not had a voice. They're going to get that in me. And it is the most powerful voice the state has ever seen. And it's time for that voice to be heard.
And you're running as a Democrat, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you've said multiple times how big business has lined the pockets of both parties. Why run as a Democrat and not as an independent?
So the reason why I'm a Democrat, one, when I'm elected governor, I'll be the fourth generation public servant of South Carolina in my immediate family, all of whom are Democrats, going back more than 100 years. I'm a Democrat because I believe in people. I believe in people. And I believe that people are what makes this state great. And what we should be doing is investing and reinvesting in our people, not doing the for-profit desires of these corporations. The whole thing is just upside down. It's just upside down. And it's got to change. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Understood. Did you have something?
What about infrastructure? Right now, our roads are terrible, traffic's terrible, decaying buildings. What would you bring? Do you have any like new ideas? Do you have any things that you would like do right away, hit the ground running when it comes to do with infrastructure?
So when it comes to infrastructure, all options are on the table, okay? And that's one of the first things that I'm going to do. So there is so much bureaucracy and redundancy in the system, in the DOT, both at the state level and the local level. It's become incredibly inefficient. And because of it, taxpayers are not getting the return on their taxpayer investment, and that must change, okay? If you've ever noticed, when you go around the state, don't you always see the same contractors building the roads? Well, my gut tells me there's a reason why those same contractors are building the roads. And my gut tells me, you know, if we have a little competition in South Carolina, we might get a better product. You follow me? So that'll be the second thing I'll do. Now, the third thing is we're going to have to come up with funding. Now, right now, well, the last report I saw, the DOT was sitting on a $2 billion surplus. Now, that's part of the $9 billion surplus the state has in its what they call rainy day account, okay? So that's $2 billion right now that can be put to use to improve our roads. I think we also, as a state, we need to look into ways to take pressure and congestion off of our highways. You follow me? It's these 18-wheelers that are tearing up our roads, not the Honda Accords, okay? So we need to look at I mean, for example, some states, they pave two lanes, they get them off the interstate, and that's where the tractor trailers are. You follow me? And they help maintain and pay for those roads. They're on their own for-profit roads. You follow me? I think we need to look at high-speed rail. I mean, why is it that you think about I-26? So we got this huge median, right, between the highway. Why don't we have high-speed rail? I mean, Mickey Mouse did it in the 1970s at Disney World, right? And so grandmama can get on the high-speed rail in Charleston, go see her grandbaby in Greenville and be there in 30 minutes. Why don't we do that? Why isn't that part of our plan? I'll tell you why. Because the railroad lobby is an old lobby in this country, and it's a deep pocket. That's why.
So would you want to increase public transportation in Charleston and across the state?
We have to improve the way we get around so it's efficient. And you do that through public transportation, you do that through our infrastructure. Because look, it's important, one, for families to be able to get around. That's how business, that's how commerce and goods move around. I mean, that's our infrastructure. What's happening in South Carolina is we're the fastest growing state in the nation, and we're becoming more disconnected because our infrastructure is crumbling. We just went to an event in Greenville probably 3 weeks ago. Now, we left on a Sunday, but it took 4.5 hours to get to Greenville, and there were no wrecks. It's because you go from four lanes to 2 lanes to 3 lanes to 4 lanes. It's like the interstate literally creates choke points. I mean, it's like driving in an accordion. I mean, who in the world thought this is the way to have a road system? Think about 95. I promise you, if you did a poll, that people live in Florida and people live in Georgia, when y'all drive north, what do y'all hate when y'all come back south? South Carolina. Because there's only 2 lanes south and 2 lanes north. It's like running into a daggum traffic jam. Well, there's a reason. Because leadership, servant leadership, takes planning, takes preparation, and it takes the work. And that's what, I mean, we've got to improve our infrastructure. We cannot allow ourselves to be the fastest growing state in the country and have our roads deteriorating at the same time. I mean, there are people who sit in traffic an hour and a half one way just to get to the job in the population center. So that's 3 hours a day they're stuck in traffic. And they're not getting paid to be stuck in traffic. See, that's direct economic harm because they're having to pay to keep their car running. They're having to pay to fix the front end from the potholes. They're not getting paid for being at their desk at work. And they're being robbed of the most precious thing we have on the side of the soil, and that's our time. That's no way to live. And all of these problems that we have in our state are all symptoms of the core problem, and that's political corruption. And the people of South Carolina in this election cycle have the opportunity to cure that corruption through me.
I have one more question that has to do with infrastructure. 526. That's been a debacle for, 10, 15 years. You know, let's extend it to Johns Island. Let's not. Let's do it. Let's not. We've had 2 governors saying, yes, it's going to happen, and then it falls through. What is your stance on 526? Are you for it or against it being extended in, West Ashton, Charleston to alleviate some of this traffic?
Right. So what my job as governor will be is to look at our state as a whole.
Right.
You follow me? And so I think one thing that's happened is we have little fiefdoms, right? And nobody's looking out for the whole state, how this road system, this infrastructure works together. Everybody's fighting over here for I-77, or people fighting over here for 526. There's a local fight, a state fight, a federal fight. Everybody's just fighting. Somebody's got to come in, an adult's got to come in the room, a servant leader like me who doesn't care whether he gets elected. He's there to do the daggum job, to do the work that needs to be done. And when you look at our state as a whole, that's how you put the plan together. So I don't want to say today, without having done that work, what I would do. I'm not a politician. My job as governor is to fix these roads. We got one guy running for governor who's from the upstate. I just read in the paper, his interstate, it comes right through his district, is the most dangerous stretch interstate in the entire country. And yet he's running to be our state's next governor. See, these politicians, man, I think they think that people are stupid. I think they think people can't connect the dots. Well, there's one thing I know after 25 years of being in front of juries, people are smart. They are smart. And they absolutely can connect the dots. And I think this is election cycle where they connect the dots for themselves. And it's going to be a beautiful thing. It really is.
Good.
Yeah, is there anything else you want to
Anything?
add?
Anything else?
Anything we didn't
you guys
touch on?
Want to touch on?
Nope.
All right.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Appreciate you taking the time, sir.